Hey, my darlings. I thought I'd have a look at something a bit different in the Shadowlands today. And that is what is actually in the shadow that is part of your gifts, what you came here to do, your purpose, and not just purpose, but what did you come here to experience and enjoy? Because what is not always spoken about when it comes to shadow work is that often our gifts are actually hidden in the shadows. It may be a gift of speaking, it may and communication. It may be the gift of playing music, being an artist, a dancer. It may be the gift of being a leader, and you're meant to be a leader in the world. And why do these gifts get put into the shadows? It's because as a child, we get told who we are, how to behave, what is worthwhile and what is not worthwhile. Are you worthwhile, basically? Are you enough as you are? And so we learn in our family, our cultural setting, we learn what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. We learn what is of value to that family and that culture and that society. And we learn to bury parts of ourselves if those parts are not of value in that society. So very often, the shadow is not those bits of us we don't want to look at, the projections we make, the shame that we may carry, the fears that we've hidden, or anything else. It may be that we have these aspects of ourselves that desire expression, that desire to be seen and to be heard. And when we bury those down, we're not being who we are. And life generally is not feeling whole or complete. We don't feel whole or complete within life. So I'm inviting you today to have a look at what may be buried inside you. So, for instance, myself as an example, as I always look at my shadow within this, so you can all see that you're not the only one who've got stuff going down, right? So, for me, it's communication. I am a communicator, or I wouldn't be here and I wouldn't do the stuff that I do. But more than that, it's the feeling part of me. I feel things really deeply to the point that if I get to an emotional moment, that I find it very difficult to express my emotions. What's the reason for that? Why would I find that difficult? Well, I was brought up in a family where, look, I had stressed parents, as many of us do, so I have an understanding of this. See, so already I'm making excuses for it because it's buried there in the shadows. I had parents who didn't like us expressing emotions. There were a lot of boundaries and a lot of censorship on what was okay to express and wasn't okay to express. And that was partly generational. It was also partly, of course, their own upbringings in boarding school for my father and convent school for my mother, right? So already they were in these places of censorship. And that was brought forward into their parenting style. Nothing wrong with that. That's that generation. So, what was the effect that that had on myself as a child? I have three brothers. They have their own way of hiding things in the shadow, which may be different to mine. But for me, as a very sensitive child and the only girl in the family, my brothers, I have three brothers, they had a different experience. So I feel things deeply. I always felt things deeply. I was always a very expressive child. I was always dancing around, um, and singing, which carried on into my adulthood. But this feelings that I would have that were overwhelming at points would get stuck eventually in my throat. As you've seen, I've just been gesturing to my throat as I've been speaking to you, because that is where, if I get over emotional, everything gets stuck. I can't speak properly. I can't properly cry unless I'm in a really safe space with someone I feel very, very trusting and safe with, because it all goes here. So it rises up, gets stuck in my throat, and I can't express. Yet communication is a gift. My feelings are a gift. If I didn't feel, I couldn't do what I do for people. I'm an empath, as many of us are. And so that is not useful, not useful at all. I also was an artist. I've mentioned that I sang, and I sang right into my adulthood, and I became a singer, professional singer at one point. 10 years or so I did that. But I was taught that there were ways to sing, right? I was taught there were ways to sing. I was trained as a singer ultimately, and for a while I lost my voice again. In other words, I couldn't sing. I lost the pleasure in singing. I felt I was always doing it wrong. When I sang, there was always something stuck in here because my gift had been suppressed. It had been censored. It had been contained, actually, that particular gift. My feelings had been censored. So those are the things that I carried through. Yet my feelings are a gift. My voice is a gift. So I'm inviting you to look at what it is inside yourself that you censored for whatever reason. We also have different reasons that we censor. But there may well be something there inside you that is bursting to get out and have some free expression. And that is what is buried in the shadows. And when we dissolve and unpeel those layers that have been all entangled with each other in the censorship in general of um, upbringing and conditioning, right? When we do that, the gifts will start to arise. And when the gifts arise and you start to express that gift, and it doesn't matter what those gifts are, right? When you do that, you feel more whole. You feel as though you've something inside you has returned, and a more peaceful self will come to the surface, be inside, will be here because you know it's you. Anyway, that's that for Shadowlands for this week, and I'm sending you loads of love. I look forward, if any of you want to make comments on where your gifts are buried and what you want to bring out, I look forward to hearing from you. Loads of love.